Welcome, Chatham, to the July 23, 2024 meeting of the Chatham Select Board. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet device. If anyone else is recording the meeting, please notify the chair. I don't see any in the room. I don't see anybody online. Thank you. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29, 2023 signing of the Acts of 2023, extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, until March 31, 2025. This joint meeting of the Chatham Select Board and that's not right. This is not a joint meeting. This meeting of the Chatham Select Board is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 1508-945-4410, conference ID 203-386-491#, or join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Chatham TV, Xfinity Channel 1072, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. The first thing, order of business, is to establish a quorum. Mr. Nicastro. Present. Mr. Schell is present. Ms. Davis.
Present.
Mr. Dykens.
Present.
And Mr. Metters.
Present.
We have a quorum present. Our agenda for this evening, very quickly, we start with public announcements and agenda requests. We have a public hearing. We have then public comments on the business agenda. Our business agenda is 7 items. First is the acceptance of a fence donation for the golf course. The second is considering the use of town property and town roads for the 40th annual 3-day autumn escape bike ride. The third is considering use of town property and alcohol on town property by the Broadreach Healthcare End of Summer Staff Party. The fourth is considering a new charge and reduction of membership from 9 to 7 members for the Community Housing Partnership Committee. The fifth is discussion of the proposed new Adult Supportive Day Memorandum of Agreement with the town of Orleans for fiscal year 2025. The sixth, we have some appointments and reappointments for both election officials and committees, boards, and commissions. And finally, the town manager's report. We begin with public announcements, and my first one will be Katie Donovan. Katie's the acting town manager this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I'm excited to introduce to you all and to the town our new town planner, Christine O'Grady. Christine comes to us most recently from the town of Dartmouth, Massachusetts, where she served as the planning director and also served as the city planner for Newport, Rhode Island. So she has great coastal community experience. Christine holds her American Institute of Certified Planners certification. She holds a bachelor's degree in landscape architecture and a master's of community planning and area development from the University of Rhode Island. And she's also successfully completed the Public Service Fellowship Program at the Harvard Kennedy School. And we are so excited to have Christine join our team in community development and wanted to provide a brief introduction to her tonight. So,
hello, everyone.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I look forward to working with you all.
Super.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank
Great
you.
to have you.
thank you.
Absolutely. I'll go next to the board. Cherie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple of items, just a matter of announcement that Select Board Member Metters and I had the pleasure of meeting the new Sector Southeast New England commander at the U.S. Coast Guard Station this morning in the presence of the former commander, Captain Prindle. This is Mimi Moon. She comes from Seattle, Washington, with a background in all sorts of things. She was very interesting. We had a great conversation about some of the challenges Chatham's faced in the past, about communications and purpose forward. Also a little bit about the wind turbine offshore projects that are occurring in our area. And I think we walked away, Corey, I'm sure you agree, that we have a good staff in place that's doing great work. Greg Berman and Jason Holm are establishing wonderful communications with the Coast Guard Station, and I feel that we're on a really good path to have a better understanding of some of the issues that our commercial and recreational boaters have. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I won't get into a dialogue, but yes, it was a very good meeting. We can continue to have more of these type of face-to-face meetings. I think it's going to be to the benefit of the town, the Coast Guard, and then our staff resources, especially our new harbor master, I think are critical in that process. So it was a good meeting. It was a nice 30, 40-minute conversation. So it was not a little 10-minute quick little face-to-face, but these are the type of meetings we need to have.
Very informal. On another note, to follow up on the letter that the Cape and Islands Municipal League Association and the support letter that the Board of Selectmen sent on the offshore Gulf of Maine offshore wind projects. Consequently, there was a meeting last Wednesday in Eastham. It was not a formal public hearing, but staff from BOEM, which is the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, were in the room with some 250 to 300 Lower Cape community members, select board members, representatives from Rep Peak and Jillian Sears' office were there as well to go over some of the concerns and questions that some of the citizens had. There was a request to put a hold on the project for 6 months. We consequently, Cape and Islands Municipal League Leaders Association decided to do another letter to make that request, but there were two important factors that came out of that meeting. One was that there was no programmatic environmental assessment being done on the project, and there is no socioeconomic impact study being done on any of the projects, which includes Vineyard Wind, which last Friday lost a 300-foot blade off of one of the turbines full of fiberglass that ended up in the water and consequently on the beaches in Nantucket and closed it. Now, Nantucket, BOEM has assured us that, and Bessie, which is another agency, has assured that Vineyard Wind will be paying for the cleanup. However, there is no mitigation or compensation around the fact that those beaches were closed, and this has now created an industrial situation for the town of Nantucket. Consequently, some of our local fishermen have found debris in the water and have brought that in. Fortunately, we haven't seen any wash up on our beach, but some of the things that we really need to do is demand that we see more and have more input into the process of permitting and siting wind turbines. Thank you.
Jeff?
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Just to follow up on what Shireen just spoke about, the BOEM, it wasn't a public hearing, a formal public hearing, but I was in attendance, and it was fascinating. I appreciate Shireen's interest and certainly the interest of the Cape and Islands Municipal League, Selectmen's and the Municipal League Association. But there are so many, and I'm not speaking against wind power or the notions of climate change or global warming. However, there are many unanswered questions about this massive wind farm that they're proposing in the Gulf of Maine. It is a massive endeavor. The technology they're proposing is are floating wind turbines 1,000 feet high that have yet to be designed, but they're ready to sell leases. They're ready to sell 8 leases. In order to get the electricity back to the mainland, they're going to have to go, I think in my unstudied estimation, they're going to have to go through the marine sanctuary, through Stellwagen Bank. They're targeting Sandwich, where there's a substation, and they're targeting Plymouth, where there's the nuke plant substation, to get the transmission lines back into the mainland and then into the grid. So there are many, many unanswered questions with respect to this wind farm. Again, not against wind power. I just think that we need to really examine the issues that are presented by this massive development offshore that will be able to be seen from the shore, P-Town, Truro, East Hammer, and perhaps Chatham, maybe not Chatham, but on the outer Cape, the lower and outer Cape. So I would like to place an agenda item here so that we have some inkling of what's going on, and I really do appreciate the leadership. Frankly, I was totally unaware of this until Shireen brought it forward a couple weeks ago. Totally unaware. I didn't know. There have been hearings up and down the coast in Maine and in Danvers, I think, and north of Boston, but I tell you that we are unprepared for this. We don't know really what they're proposing and what the long-term ramifications of what they're proposing are going to be. So I think we need to have a presentation, we have to reach out, and we need to get informed as a town and as a select board and as a citizenry. Fascinating, not against it, but there are just so many unanswered questions with respect to so many items, you guys. Never mind the impact on the fishery and on whales, on lobsters. It's endless. It's very, very, it could be very impactful. To go from the sublime to the mundane, I would like to revisit the power to Kate Gould Park. I've been told that it's wavering still during band concerts, and I asked 3 times to have the power revisited to Kate Gould Park, the gazebo at Kate Gould Park. I asked last August, I asked in March, and again in May. And I know we're doing Shakespeare in the Park this week and tonight. So the last thing we want is a power outage and or wavering lights while we have entertainments there. And it's such a critical part of our life here in Chatham. And then also as an agenda item, I'd like to revisit the notion, and I hope that the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee is on this one, but betterments. Mr. Oppenheim raised the issue a couple months ago, and it's stuck with me ever since, that we need to get out of our own way in terms of how we finance connections to our sewer system. So I'd like to keep that on the forefront. Thank you.
Amen to that. Did you want to add anything, Shireen?
No, I'm fine. I did just want to say that I know that Natural Resource Department is tracking the wind proposal project, so it's not like,
Okay, for me, where do we put the request to look into the power issue at Kate Gould Park? Is that for the town staff? Okay.
Absolutely, yeah,
Okay.
town staff.
Okay. If there's nothing else from the board, can we go to the yeah, go ahead. Can we do the noted item for the public announcements were the awards for the parade? If you don't mind, let's go to that, and then we'll get you, Mr. Davis, if that's fine with you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Shell. As chairman of the Chatham Independence Day Parade Committee, it's my honor to pass out the awards tonight from the 2024 parade. And I know you're all there. It was a great day. It was a great parade. The crowds, frankly, were unbelievable. Not sure it was the most ever, but it was a huge crowd there, and I think everybody had a very good time. So we'll call it a success. Helping me tonight, Mr. Steve DeBoer, who's a member of the parade committee. We had 3 new committee members this year, and frankly, they were great members, and it went very, very well. So that being said, I'd like to give out the awards. We'll start with the best business entry going to Exit Merchandise. Congratulations. The best civic entry, Chatham Elementary School. Congratulations. The funniest entry, going to Chatham Municipal Airport. The most patriotic entry, Chatham Bars Inn. We can put that aside. We'll get it to them. The best youth entry, Ken Owens Memorial Soccer Jamboree. Just to throw some Congratulations. The best family entry, the Fitzgerald family. Congratulations. Overall third place, Witches on the Water. Congratulations. Overall second place, the Magner family. And overall first place, and it looks like we should have spent a little money polishing the trophy for them, but for the 6th year in a row, the 8th out of the last 10, the Phillips Farm family. A tremendous float. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks.
I think Sean is over in the corner.
And we can go outside if you like. Congratulations. Any questions, comments from Select Board members?
Jeff, go ahead.
Wonderful parade. Thank you so much for your efforts. It was a phenomenal parade. You say it's the biggest crowd you've ever seen every year, but I think it was the biggest crowd I've ever seen. It was really great. Really well organized, well run, and lots of fun. I got so many great accolades from people around town and visitors alike. So
Thank
it's
you,
just
and
super.
thank you to gentlemen like Steve DeBoer.
You bet, you bet. Thank you. Thank you so much for your efforts, to the entire team.
No, tremendous thank you to you guys, the staff. I mean, it takes a lot of effort to kind of pull these things together. We have a great template in place, but it takes the action of volunteers. I want to thank you. In case we haven't picked up, Paul's decided to step away. We thank you very much for your service.
Thank you.
So your one little task before you leave is to kind of recruit one more body to fill that seat. But no, thank you so much for your efforts.
Yep. Well, I'll be back in 2 or 3 weeks with first night, so you'll see me then.
Congratulations on such a well-run event.
Great.
We really
Thank you.
appreciate you.
Thank you all.
Oh, wait a minute, I'm not done yet. I want to say, I don't think I've missed too many, but I know I've been to at least 35 of these over the years, and there are others, of course, who've had more. But if there's one event that brings us all together, and by the way, brings a lot of other people from around Chatham, Harwich, I mean, the people who don't have parades come to our parade. It is a truly unifying event, and this one this year was nonpareil in that regard. So thanks to you, thanks to everybody who did that, who put it together, thanks to all the people who participated. It's a phenomenal event for Chatham, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Davis, you get to follow that act.
Thanks a lot. That's a tough act to follow. My name's Bob Davis. I'm chair of the Shellfish Advisory Committee, and I'm here this evening as a follow-up to a letter that our committee sent to you folks at the end of May. And the subject was some ideas on separating 90 Bridge Street as a separate project and funding it on a singular basis. And we also proposed the possibility of a special town meeting in the fall. So at this moment, I was going to ask for an agenda item on the subject of 90 Bridge Street, but it's my understanding that you folks have set an agenda item on that subject for August 6th, if I'm correct. So instead of asking for that agenda item, I'd like to thank you for being proactive and moving this very important project along. I'd also like to take the opportunity to encourage members of the public who are interested in 90 Bridge Street and Chatham shellfishing to come to that meeting to demonstrate your support for Chatham shellfishing and all the activities at 90 Bridge Street. So please come on August 6th. I do have that date correct. Is that so?
You do have the date correct.
Right.
The board hasn't commented or otherwise participated in that judgment, but I have tentatively with the town manager put the item on the agenda for our next meeting, which is August 6th.
Great.
And I do want to say, just following up your entreaty, I'm told that there is a considerable amount of interest, as represented by not only your letter on behalf of your committee, but in other waterfront committees here in Chatham, as well as among other organizations, yacht clubs, for example, in this initiative or this possibility. And I'd just like to add the encouragement that if that be the case, it is important that everybody come out and demonstrate that support. I think it's always problematical for the board to go back to the town meeting before the next annual meeting, and to the extent that that's coming from the community, that's a big help.
Great. Thank you again for your support. We look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Yes, sir.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to request an agenda item. My name is Bob Burns, and I'm from 147 Lime Hill Road. October 28th, 2022, and that was 2022. Two members of our Lime Hill group met with a member of the Select Board after receiving the mandatory two-year connection letter, expressing our concern and also giving a presentation with our concerns that I'm sure is in the town records. Subsequent to that, November 2022, so a few months later, we had a follow-up meeting with Dr. Duncanson with a presentation and our concerns and recommendations. Dr. Duncanson at that time mentioned the grinder pump RFP release for the town to purchase the grinder pumps was imminent and help is on the way by the summer of 2023. So now we're into 2024, summer of 2024. At the January 16th, 2024 Select Board meeting 6 months ago, the Water and Sewer Committee was directed to revisit their recommendations for homeowner grinder pump equity. The second remanded item was to revisit the Chatham Master Sewer Plan and determine where more connections, more gravity connections instead of low pressure could be installed. So another 6 months has gone by with no recommendations and no decisions. Because of the urgency of moving forward, I'm requesting the Select Board add the grinder pump issue as an agenda item at the next scheduled meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
may I just provide a point of information? As the liaison to the Water and Sewer Committee, and I'm not going to deliberate or discuss, but this matter is still before the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee. They've been meeting monthly. I think they may have had 1 month off. So you should be aware that this matter is pending before the Water and Sewer Committee, and they're looking at it, and they will be coming up with a recommendation. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other, Ms. Wilcox?
I would like to thank the chair for this opportunity. I'd like to request an upcoming agenda item to include reviewing the Airport Commission's approval of the airport layout plan, reviewing the approval of the final AMPU, and reviewing the Airport Commission's approval of the approach that's in the master plan. I've recently sent several emails to the chairman of the Airport Commission requesting the above. The first email was sent on June 30th, 2024. My second email was sent on July 17th. I copied both the chair of the BOS and Chairmember Davis a copy of this email. I'd like to read you some of what was contained in that email. There was an Airport Commission meeting held on 11/12/19. The main purpose of that Airport Commission meeting was to involve the public with the development of Chatham's master plan, most importantly with regards to its changing of the approach at CQX, which were Chapter 5 and Chapter 6. This task was not accomplished. By the time the next Airport Commission meeting was held, you, and again this was directed to Mr. Harrison, had formatted, advertised, and scheduled four formal and 3 informal meetings to be held, which addressed the BOS's request for public involvement to, quote, actively seek, excuse me, community input and help refine the AMPU. Only 2 out of these 7 meetings were held. It's important to remember that no Airport Commission meetings were held for close to 8 months after that meeting. The which was the time that the Airport Commission closed due to COVID shutdown. My question would be, if these meetings were never held, how could the AMPU have been finalized? At the first meeting held after the shutdown was on October 28th, 2020. At this meeting, Gale and Associates presented a monthly project update. This report states, quote, the airport layout plan was submitted to the FAA for review by the FAA. This was done during the 8 months when no Airport Commission meetings were held. Question, who authorized the submission of that report? I was appointed to the Airport Commission after March 10th, 2020 meeting during its shutdown. During my time on the commission, I do not recall voting to approve any of the chapters 1 through 4, 5 and 6, or 7 through 10 of the AMPU. I do not remember voting to, quote, authorize the airport layout plan, end quote, either. However, while I was on the commission, I do remember that the Airport Commission voted to change its prior decision regarding the new approach into Chatham's Airport from option 3 to option 4. This new option added vertical guidance, quote unquote, to the approved approach, and that is establish a non-precision, straight-in instrument approach with, quote, vertical guidance at our airport. The addition of vertical guidance to the new approach resulted in the need to add, quote, guidance slope qualification service, GQS approach clearing standards, end of quote, to the new approach. This effectively increased the number of easements regarding tree removal to over 24 more properties, and the overall cost more than doubled to the plan, making it much more costly to our town, as well as more invasive to the environment and the community surrounding the airport. As this is all indirectly, and this is in the email to the Airport Commission, as this is all indirectly related to the pending tree removal on properties surrounding the airport, I would like to request no further action be taken on any proposed tree trimming or removal in the approach zone at CQX until answers to my concerns and questions are resolved. In conclusion, I would like to note that on the January 13th, 2021 meeting of the Airport Commission, a vote was taken to approve revisions done to Chapter 7 and Chapter 9. Again, I stress, what happened to reviewing and revising Chapters 5 and 6? Never done. Also during that airport commission meeting.
We're going on past our 3 minutes here.
I just have one more short thing to say.
Okay.
The meeting held in January, the commission voted to approve option 4. Again, I was on the commission. I want to go on the record as stating that either before or during that meeting, I was told by at least one person that option 3 and option 4 were the same. I will agree they're the same, except for the 3 words "with vertical guidance." I'll end by saying the AMPU on file has a completion date of February 2021, which is only 1 month after the Airport Commission voted to approve Chapter 4, its new approach. Thank you. And if you have any questions, please address me.
Thank you. Your request is noted. I'll just note for the record, I believe I was present for the last Airport Commission meeting at which you made essentially substantially the same request, and my understanding was that the undertaking on behalf of the Airport Commission was to go back and look at the files and attempt to answer the question with documents to support those answers. Do we agree that that was their resolution at that point?
That was their resolution, and again, I followed up with the email on the 17th supporting what was and wasn't done, what was approved or sent to the FAA during the shutdown, and added more questions.
Which is fine, but they haven't had a chance to have another meeting, so.
But I'm asking that the tree removal be put on hold until. Thank you.
Understood, thank you. Any others? That being the case, we can move to the one public hearing we have, and I'll ask the clerk to read the public notice of the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Town of Chatham Select Board Public Hearing Notice. Notice is hereby given that the Chatham Select Board will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, July 23rd, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. in the large meeting room at the Town Office Annex 261 George Ryder Road, Chatham, and remotely via Microsoft Teams platform to consider an application to transfer an annual all alcohol beverages package store license with pledges of collateral and inventory from SCLX Inc., doing business as South Chatham Liquors, 2447 Main Street, South Chatham. Timothy Jamoulis, manager, to South Chatham Liquor Corp., doing business as South Chatham Liquors, 2447 Main Street, South Chatham. I'm going to really mess this name up. Aplis Kumar Patel, manager. All interested parties are encouraged to participate. Sign the Select Board. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. Do we have the applicant online to present this request? Mr. Patel?
Hey, good evening. Yes, and good evening, Board. My name is Matthew Porter. I'm the attorney for South Chatham Liquor Corp. Along with me on the hearing is Alpesh Kumar Patel. So before the Board, well, first, thank you for your time. Before the Board, this is a transfer of the all-alcohol package store license, which relates to the sale of South Chatham Liquors at 2447 Main Street. Alpesh Kumar Patel is the president-treasurer, one of the principals of South Chatham Liquor Corp. He is also the proposed license manager, meaning he'll be the on-site manager there, anywhere between 40 to 50 hours per week. This is a very experienced ownership group. Along with Mr. Patel is Pareen Patel and Chetan Patel. All 3 individuals own liquor stores on the Cape. They all live locally, so certainly they understand the rules and responsibilities that come along with the operation of a store. They've operated all their stores very responsibly. They're all alcohol tip certified. All employees will be required to be alcohol tip certified as well. There are no major anticipated changes to the store itself. It's a fairly small store, 1,000 square feet. So there's not a whole lot that you can do inside, but there's no change of hours, no changes to the structure of the business. So it's essentially, it's a fairly straightforward transfer. Before the Board, in addition to the request for the transfer of the license, is a request for a pledge of license. Rockland Trust is financing the transaction. So we would be requesting that the Board approve a pledge of license and inventory to Rockland Trust as well. But with that, I can certainly answer any questions that the Board may have. Mr. Patel can as well.
Dean?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, I should offer the opportunity for the public to make any comment before we go to the Board. Anything in the public? Dean, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just, on the application itself, Attorney, on page 4, regarding the item 8, occupancy of the premises, there's a question at the end that was left unanswered. Will the landlord receive revenue based on a percent? I assume the answer is no.
Yeah, the answer is no. We'll make that correction. I can
Okay.
get that over to your
Okay.
office before it was.
And I just had a question regarding the employment information, I just was curious as to the nature of the businesses that the individual was employed. New Orleans Corp.
Yeah, New Orleans Corp owns a package store in New Orleans. So
Okay.
similar business to this. Yep.
Okay, and was Shariah Corp., was that also a
I
package?
believe Shariah was a convenience store.
Okay.
I don't believe that had a package store license, but Orleans does. It's
Okay.
a full package store. Yep.
I just want to note for the record, when I saw that there was a pledge involved, I remembered that the board had an issue regarding a pledge of license way back in 2016 in connection with CBI, and then I had forgotten, we also had a similar one with the Wayside, and we got opinion of town council at the time relative to whether the interests of the town would be protected if there were a default in the agreement between the pledgor and the bank, I think the board was satisfied with the opinion of Mr. Costello that the town would still have authority over the license in terms of any prospect that the bank might want to transfer it to somebody. And I think Shauna is quite familiar with that. And I did ask Shauna if I could see the pledge instrument in this case, which I did get, so I took a look at that. I'm not giving a legal opinion on it, but things look satisfactory to me, so I'm comfortable with the arrangement. Thank you.
Yeah, and the only thing that I would note, not to interrupt, but if Rockland Trust were to ever have to act on the pledge, any subsequent purchaser would obviously have to come back before the board for your vetting as well.
Yeah, in the case of Wayside, we approved it. In the case of CBI, they did not go forward with it, as I recall, after some discussion by one of our board members at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm just thankful for Select Board Member DeCastro for reminding us of that pledge, the activity around the pledge. We did have those questions, and that was the outcome that I remember, so I appreciate that, Dean. And this application looks great to me. It looks fine. Thanks.
I appreciate that as well. I have one other question, however, and that is the transfer that we're approving here is from one operator, owner, to your client, operator, owner. The pledge itself is a transfer. And I guess I'm asking you as a legal matter, whether this approval that we're being asked to make encompasses that, what to me would be a separate transfer.
So, yeah, so the transfer of the license, you're correct, is from one corporation to the other corporation. Yeah, a pledge is not necessarily, it's not a transfer of a license. It's more so collateral. So think of it as a mortgage, securing a bank's note on a payment of a home. Only if, a homeowner were to default with the bank, then, foreclose here, the bank would then act on their pledge of license, and they would have to come back before the board in order to transfer it to anybody else. So it's really, here it's one transfer, and then it's a request for, approval of that pledge, but it's not a secondary transfer per se, if that makes sense.
I think it does, and Dean is going to comment on it.
That's all right. I think you probably took commercial transactions in Los Angeles.
I might have.
Terrible course. It is. I think there's a security interest under the Uniform Commercial Code.
If it's a security interest, then I'm done.
We don't want to know anything
I'm done.
about it.
I'm done. Okay. A motion?
Move approval?
Second.
All those in favor, Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye, and Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
Thank you, sir.
Excellent. Thank you for your
You are
time.
in good shape.
Very good. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Our next item is to consider the acceptance of a fence donation at 233 Seaview Street benefiting the golf course. If you weren't here, I would really screw it up. I'm going to offer the opportunity for public comments on the business agenda before we go to the business agenda. I don't see anybody in the room. I don't see anybody online. So as previously stated, acceptance of the fence donation, do we have somebody, is Amy Howell online to speak to this?
Good evening. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Great, thank you. So the fence along the Seaside Links parking lot in 233 Seaview Street fell into disrepair just due to age and storms. So subsequently, the town DPW department did remove the fence for safety concerns. After the removal of the fence, Mr. Ron Cammy of 233 Seaview Street approached the Golf Advisory Committee and generously offered to replace the fence at his expense. The replacement fence would match the old fence and remain in the existing footprint, thus making it on town property. So after the installation of the replacement fence, the town would be responsible for maintaining the fence after it's installed. And the Golf Committee, Advisory Committee unanimously voted to approve the donation of the fence from Mr. Ron Cammy.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Dyken.
Yes, I'm the liaison to the Golf Committee, and I move to accept the fence donation from the Cammy family to be placed along the old fence line between the Seaside Links parking lot and 233 Seaview Street.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Quick question,
Yeah, go
actually.
ahead, yep.
Just a quick question. I know we're going to put, the proposal is to put the fence back in the same footprint. How much space is between where the traditional footprint was and the actual property line, just out of curiosity? Because this is going to stay on town property.
Hardly any.
Hardly any?
Hardly
It's
any.
minimal.
Very
Okay.
minimal.
Nope,
It's
that's-
going to go exactly where it was before. It's very minimal.
Nope, I just want to, just out of curiosity.
And it looks great.
All right, I'm good.
Okay.
Until he hits it with a stray ball.
Excuse me?
Until he hits it with a stray ball.
Yeah.
Right. I think we have a motion and a second on the table. Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Mr. Dyken.
Aye.
Ms. Davis. Mr. Shell says aye. Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
Thank you very much, and thanks to the Cammy family.
Thank you.
Next, we have an application to use town property and town roads for the 40th annual three-day autumn escape bike ride on Friday, September 27, 2024. Do we have somebody on, is Mr. Curley online?
Yes, I am here. Thank you.
Welcome. Can you tell us about what you're planning here and what your application is all about?
Well, this is the 40th annual three-day bike ride from the American Lung Association. And we have only been reduced to a two-day ride since COVID. And this year we feel like it's safe to come back to the Outer Cape. And our start point would be one of our traditional rest stops, which is the Oyster Pond Beach House and parking lot. And our plan is to start the ride there on Friday. So we would be doing a ride on the Outer Cape on Friday, and then the Inner Cape on Saturday, and then sort of the Middle Cape on Sunday. Three different routes on three different parts of the Cape. And what it would involve in Chatham is use of the beach house there, the parking lot, and about 5 to 7 miles of town roads to get us either into Howich or into Brewster, depending on whether the riders are doing the short ride or the long ride. Ideally, on that day, we're going to get back to Camp Burgess, which is our weekend accommodations in the town of Sandwich. But like I say, for many, many years, we've always traditionally used the Oyster Pond Beach House as our rest stop on one of our other days prior to COVID. So we have been involved with the town for many years. I've been doing this as the route manager since 2004 was my first year. So this will be my 20th year doing the route management for the American Lung Association.
Thank you. Ms. Davis?
Thank you, Mr. Curley, correct?
Yes.
And congratulations on 20 years of doing this. That's quite an accomplishment. So my understanding is that you have 150 riders that are going to start at Oyster Pond for the bike route.
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
and so.
And that would be on Friday. That would be on a Friday. That's
Sure.
not on a weekend. Yeah.
That's a lot of, I mean, can you give me a scenario of how are people going to park there? Is there transportation? Are there bike racking vans that come in? How do the people show up and start riding?
Well, the 150 is more of a number for the average for the weekend. Obviously, our Saturday and Sunday rider have larger number of participants just because a lot of people, don't get the day off on Friday. But what we would be doing is we would be busing them with school buses from our overnight accommodations at Camp Burgess in Sandwich. So we would come in with a bus and a truck prior to our 11 o'clock start, probably hoping for a 10 o'clock arrival in Chatham for an 11 o'clock start on the ride. And it would be basically everything would be cleaned up and out of there by a couple hours after we leave, probably even less than that. By noontime, I think everything would be back to completely normal at the Oyster Pond. So we're really just using it as a drop-off point to get our ride started.
And I see both the police and fire have expressed no concerns with the event. So they've said that they're okay with it. That's all I have. Thank
Yes,
you.
and just the history of our group is it's an older crowd. It's the last time I did the average age, it was 48 point something, and these are law-abiding cyclists that are not trying to race. They're stopping at stop signs. They're wearing certified helmets. They usually have blinky lights on the back of their bikes, and they're not traveling in large packs. They'll travel in ones and twos. Sometimes you'll get a group of 3 or 4. But it's not like they're making any changes in the pattern of the existing traffic.
Thank you.
Yeah, Jeff?
Just for the public, Mr. Curley, are you availing yourselves of the use of the bike trails that are extensive through the Cape?
Absolutely. Anytime a bike trail is anywhere near where we want to go, we are on the trail. There are some places where, there's some scenery and things that are not available from the bike path, and we do try to utilize that. When we do start from Chatham, the first place we do go is we go by the lighthouse, and then we head up Shore Road, and then we work our way into Brewster, and then to hop on the bike path there to head back towards the Inner Cape.
Super, thank you.
Anybody? My only question, I looked at the map. Do I understand correctly that the only time that we here in Chatham will see this group is that Friday afternoon where you start the business, and then Saturday and Sunday you'll be elsewhere? Have I got that right?
That's absolutely correct. We're there in Chatham for an 11 o'clock start.
Right.
And the riders doing the short route are in the town of Chatham, but mostly on the bike path for the first 7.6 miles. The riders that are doing the 45-mile route back to Sandwich will be in town for about just over 5 miles. So yeah, we're really out of there within 1 hour of our start. I think your town is completely free of our cyclists by noontime.
Okay, Dean, go ahead.
I was going to offer a motion.
Please.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the use of town property at Oyster Pond Beach and parking lot on Friday, September 27, 2024, from 9 o'clock a.m. to 1 o'clock p.m. for the American Lung Association 40th Annual Autumn Escape Bike Ride, and to approve the use of town roads as outlined by Paul Curley of the American Lung Association.
Second.
All those in favor, Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Ms. Davis?
Aye.
And Mr. Dyken?
Aye.
And Mr. Metters?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. We'll
And
see.
thank
Have a
you all
good
for
one.
your
We'll see you in
time. Yep.
September.
All right, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Have fun, be safe.
Yeah, absolutely. The next item we have is considering use of town property and alcohol on town property on behalf of the Broadreach Healthcare End of Summer Staff Party Friday, September 6, 2024. Do we have Ms. Murray? Stephanie Murray, are you with us online?
I'm not seeing her online, Mr. Chairman.
Do we have anybody who, I think this falls under our rule that we need to have the applicant present in order to grant the request.
Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that perhaps we continue this item. The event is not until September, and I think that there were still some outstanding questions raised in the staff report.
It was a little bit betwixt and between. And I would request that some of those issues or questions or uncertainties be clarified, which will help us in being expeditious in dealing with it.
We'll hope for the August 6th meeting then, if that's okay.
That'd be fine. Yeah, thank you. Okay, next case. For the Community Housing Partnership, Ms. McClelland is here to ask for considering a new charge and a reduction of the membership of that committee from 9 to 7.
Hello, everyone. Okay.
Welcome.
Hello. So I'm just going to give you a little synopsis of where we're at, and then I think you have a copy of the charge. Okay, great. So the partnership continues in its role to honor its commitment to advocate for the housing needs of our community. We have a great committee right now. It's small but mighty. Currently, we have representation from the Housing Authority, the Community Preservation Committee, and the Affordable Housing Trust, plus one longtime affordable housing activist, and another recent member. She's proven herself to be incredibly hardworking and willing to immerse herself in all projects at hand. We're very fortunate to have the crew that we have. Bill Bykstrom and Lynn Pleffner have stepped down. Both have served for a number of years, but they have other commitments. And unfortunately, one of our recent appointed members has stepped down, citing scheduling conflicts. She was very apologetic about having to do so. That's Nancy Barr. That, in addition to a few of our other vacancies, we were originally 9, and 2 of our members had moved. That was over a year ago, so we were deficient those 2 vacancies for quite a while. So we were missing some members, and we didn't have a quorum for a number of meetings. But despite our sporadic meeting schedule, we did manage to engage in a number of outreach with civic organizations. We met with the Chatham Men's Club, and there we were able to recruit John Avery for the Affordable Housing Trust, which was a great catch. We met with the newcomers. Multiple members have continually participated in regional housing forums and training programs at One Cape Summit, Lower Cape Housing Institute, and with CHAPA. We've contributed extensively to the Housing Protection Plan. We updated our housing brochure with relevant information and 2024 data, and reviewed and updated our charge. Moving forward, we've identified a couple of areas that we know we're going to be focusing on in the future. One of them is definitely trying to build better relationships with the public, realizing that many residents have identified and expressed feelings of not being heard and being ignored. We thought one of the easy things that we could do as our committee would be to try having a Q&A session at the end of our meeting, maybe the last 15 minutes of every meeting. We're going to do a hybrid meeting, so they can come in person, they can be online, they can email questions. We'll do Q&A, see if that helps. If there's questions that need more robust conversation, we can do an agenda item in the future, but try to bridge that gap a little bit and create a little better relationship with the folks in town. Also, looking forward at the Main Street and Meeting House projects at hand. We know that we're going to have to do outreach with the people that we want to have as prospective tenants, that a lot of folks in this community don't really understand or probably aren't prepared for what the process is to become applicants for those projects. And we want to do everything we can to make sure that they're in the queue to get into that pool when it comes. We don't want people showing up the last week saying, can I apply? It's a long process, there's a lot involved, so we'll do a lot of outreach, a lot of education, work with the business community, making sure that they're supporting and encouraging their employees to participate. So we know we're going to do that. And also just in general, trying to build up, my work with Habitat, understanding the value of starting from a really good place when you build these kind of communities, because right now they're just buildings, they're not communities till people move into them. And if we start on a positive note, we want to destigmatize these communities. We don't want it to be polarized. We want to celebrate them, and that's going to take a lot of effort. And, it's an initiative that we have to do as a larger community. We have to be deliberate in that. And however successful we are, I don't know, but we have to make an effort to do that. So I think our partnership can at least try to make that effort. And also, I think we really have to work at the rezoning effort. And I know the planning board's trying to work on West Chatham, but we really need to do community outreach and helping the community understand the missing middle and what that means, how it's rezoning the value that's there. I know that's going to be a tall order. I don't know how the community is going to embrace it, but an effort needs to be made, at least for them to understand what it is. Whether or not they accept it or not, that's another issue. But I think the information needs to be out there, and I think they need some help doing that. So we're all for that. So if you look at our charge, I don't know if you want me to read all these things. You have the pre-existing one and the older one, and then the new one up there. If you want me to read them, I'd be happy to, or...
I don't think.
I don't need to? Okay,
Unless
great.
somebody here thinks that, I think the more important thing would be to, if you can, and perhaps we can do this as well, but identify one or two or three things that occurred to you as you looked at the old one and caused you to say, hey, we better expand that or broaden it or add it or subtract it, whatever.
Sure, absolutely. I think on line 2, one of the things that was really important was focusing on, all the emphasis nowadays being affordable and attainable. There's always that dynamic now. There's a lot of narrative about what demographic we're trying to address. There seems to be a lot of tension about who we want to serve or whatever, but I really wanted to make sure that we had some language in there. And if you look at the second line, the second item there, the third sentence there, it has to be proportional to the need. And I think that should be a good measure for all of us moving forward. The housing production plan will identify different things, and we need to focus our energies on that. We all might be passionate about different things. We might know particular individuals, but we have to make sure our policies are proportional to the need. So I really wanted that to be in there. The third bullet, I really wanted to emphasize the need and the value in working with different communities within the town, but also regionally. What's the saying that, life's too short to learn from your own mistakes? You have to learn from other people's mistakes also. And I think right now, even though we think Chatham's really unique, every town is, but every town right now is dealing with the same problems we are. They're all doing the same types of things. They might be subtly different, but right now is a great opportunity to be looking at other communities, seeing what they're doing, what works, what doesn't work, and taking those best practices and applying them to what we're doing, seeing if they'll work for us. So I think we need to really make an effort to do that in a meaningful way, and that we'll be more successful if we're able to do that. So those are just a couple of things that I really want. I also, as I was reading this earlier to prepare for this, item 5, make recommendations to town meeting on housing-related warrant articles. I promise not to make so many citizens petitions. I'll try not to. But that's just I'll try to learn my lesson on that. But also still leading into housing always. But any questions? Oh, and also on the number of members, I really want to reduce to 7. But I actually really want to reduce to 5, if that's possible. We have 5 now. I don't know how you folks feel about that, but that would be my request.
Shireen, you have a question?
Yeah, thanks, Carolyn, for the presentation. And so you have a 2-part scenario here. I read your I read the changes in the charter and the charge, and I'm fine with those. I think one of the most important things that this committee can be doing along the way is education materials and outreach to the community. You are a committee of people that have been dedicated to understanding housing needs on the Cape, and taking, some of the workshops and attending meetings and being part of other organizations. And I'm fine with the charges that you put forward. As far as the committee is concerned, I appreciate that Lynn and Bill and Nancy were part of the committee and did some good work, and I would just want to say thank you to them. It seems like you have, as you said, a small and mighty crew, but you've got some pretty powerhouses on your committee. I thought that Katie Shearer's letter that went up to the State House on some of the housing bill stuff was really strong and informative, and showed a lot of initiative and leadership into that committee, and that was
She's
great.
been great, she really
Yeah,
has.
and Shirley has been there forever and is one of our biggest housing fans in Chatham, and truly appreciate her work that she's done in her guidance to the committee as
Right.
well, and her historic knowledge. I would like to see the committee stay at 7. We have seen some interest in the committee. We just interviewed somebody for the Housing Trust and asked him if he'd be interested in the Community Housing Partnership. He said yes with a little more background, so it's my obligation to get his information to you so that maybe you can sit down and have a cup of coffee with him and tell him what the committee is
Sure.
about. But for now, I'd like to see you guys try to stick to 7 and see where you go from there. Maybe come back and say it didn't work, knowing that you have your core 5 right now. Thank you.
Dean?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Carolyn, thank you very much. Appreciate your committee, the partnership, taking a look at your charge, particularly in light of the relatively recent change in the Affordable Housing Trust, and trying to sort of complement the work that the trust is charged to do. And I think you've updated this admirably. I particularly like the new bullet number 6, which talks about advocating for all demographics, including the range of family sizes, seniors, singles, and younger people new to the housing market. I think that's really important. So I'm very comfortable with your proposed charge, and I'm prepared to support it. I understand what Shireen just said, and I was prepared to support reducing you to 5. The individual that we interviewed is still an applicant for the Affordable Housing Trust. We're going to be voting on that tonight, but in the event he is not approved for that at this time, he might be a candidate for your group. Can you live with 7?
I'm more than open to 7. My angst is this,
Quorum.
like, my post-traumatic stress of not having a quorum for like 4 meetings in a row almost. We had a housing production consultant at our last meeting, and we couldn't have a meeting. I was devastated. We had all the people that have worked so hard. Katie was there with she went through every single thing in that housing production plan, had all her bullets, and we couldn't have a meeting. It was awful. So that's my anxiety about that.
You would need 4 people if you have a.
Right, I
so-
realize that, but that was the issue, because I know with the 5, we'll always have a quorum. I'm open to 7, but that was where I'm coming from for the 5. If we can get this other person, if he's gonna always, he's committed to being here, then we're short 1, we'll have to get 1, because if we have the 7, we need 4 always on board.
Do you need a decision on your size tonight?
Yeah, because we won't be able, I'm worried about because we have 9 right now, so we need to make
5.
I want to be able to have a meeting this month.
If you reduce to 7, do you think you could have that meeting this month?
Yes,
Okay, all right, thank you.
all right, thank you.
Jeff?
Oh, am I good?
I'm very supportive as well as of the charge. I really do appreciate your advocacy and your energy and your passion on this issue. The charge, for me, really does describe education and advocacy across the board for both affordable and attainable, and for all strata of our demographics. So I really do appreciate your effort. Your efforts are very much appreciated. And I think you go to 7, and see how it goes. You have 5 members that are active, and so it's likely you'll get a quorum in 4. And then there may be other folks that are interested in serving.
fine.
So I'm comfortable keeping, getting it to 7 and see how we do, Carolyn.
Okay,
But I thank you.
I can live with that.
I thank you.
Corey,
I appreciate
anything?
that.
No, I have no problem with the amendments to the charges, the charge. And as far as membership goes, I mean, it's mechanically, we drop it from 9 to 7. If it doesn't work, we can revisit it very easily. So it's not like it's a time issue or long process. You bring it back, we have a further discussion, and we amend it lower if necessary. So I'm of the opinion of 7 is a good number to go with for the time being.
Yeah, before I heard what I heard, including your request to go down to 5, I was going to ask you about 9 and keeping it at 9.
No, that,
And I appreciate the problem, and I'm convinced that you don't have to worry about that. But I am a strong believer that part of any committee's charge is, whatever you're supposed to be doing is to look for talent in your, whatever your community is, and to recruit talent, and to persuade people that, what you're doing as a committee is worthwhile over and above the whole business of speaking to the community, advocacy and education work that you're doing with respect to the rest of the community, which I applaud you for. I give you a lot of credit also for having encountered and recognized the talent that John Avery has and sending him our way at the Affordable Housing Trust. But having said that, I would like to stay at 7 or to go to 7. But it's not just for me about the ability to get a quorum. It's also about encouraging people to show up and participate. I know people have jobs, they have other obligations. I'm not impervious to that, but I think it's also important to recruit. And, if you can find, we have this one person that's a potential, but I think it's also important to recruit. So I'll leave it with that. So thank you for a very good presentation. I appreciate it. Yes, sir.
Can I offer a motion, Mr.
Please do.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the proposed charge for the Chatham Community Housing Partnership as presented by the chair, and a reduction in the number of members of the partnership from 9 to 7 members.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, Mr. Nacastro?
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Dykens?
Aye.
And Mr. Metters?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
And the charge, do you guys vote on that, or is that?
You have
Okay,
what you
okay.
asked for.
All right, great, thank you very much.
everything you asked
Appreciate
Thank
that.
you, Carolyn.
Thanks, Carolyn. Okay. The next item is the proposed fiscal year 2025 Orleans Adult Supportive Daycare Memorandum of Agreement. Do we, there you are. Okay, Leah Lacrosse to present.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, everybody. I think you all have my staff report and the contract in front of you. This will be our 8th and final year that we're hopefully asking for this memorandum of agreement, and this takes us through to June 30th, 2025. What's different about this year, the good news is the cost is level with last year. It has not increased this year. But what's different about this year is, as you know, we're planning on opening our own adult supportive day program in Chatham, hopefully by the end of November is what I'm targeting. But we want to, as we've talked about before, be sensitive to the needs of the participants that currently attend the Orleans Day program, and we don't want to ever force them to leave a program that they're quite used to and have adapted to. So we have agreed to hopefully extend this contract for 1 year for anybody who wants to stay in the Orleans program for the year, so that we don't disrupt their lives. But with the caveat that what's different about this contract from the others is that either party can give 6 months' notice to end the contract. So you're not, if for some reason every one of our, currently we have 13 participants, that's changed from the 14 that they did serve 14 over this past fiscal year, but now we're at 13. So we have agreed to continue to subsidize those attending the Orleans program for the next year, and then they will have a year to decide what to do after that. So that is, that's what we're hoping to accomplish in the next year. And again, I want to note that due to the impending opening of our own day program in Chatham, the added clause to this year's intermunicipal agreement is that either party can end, I'm sorry, not 6 months, 60 days notice, with 60 days notice. I know that everybody is anxious to know how many people from that program may be coming to ours. I had to wait until Orleans sent out a notice to the participants, which they have done. So I've begun talking to the caregivers for the current participants. I actually had one set up a meeting with me last week that is a definite wants to come over to our program. I have only spoken to 3 caregivers. So right now we have 2 yeses and a no. So, and I know that others are kind of weighing their options right now. I don't want anyone to be nervous about that. We have people who are not currently enrolled in a day program in the town of Chatham who are anxiously awaiting our opening and want to come to our program. So I am respectfully recommending that the select board approve and sign the MOA between the town of Chatham and town of Orleans for the adult supportive day program for the duration of July 1st through June 30th, 2025.
Well, nobody else has got their hand up. I'll ask the question. I was hopeful that we would be able to know what and I'm more interested in people who are in the Orleans program, what their intention is with respect to the Orleans program. And the reason is I don't read, and Dean, you or anybody else may want to help here, but the provision to which the 60-day mutual termination right to which you refer, I think is on page 2, the duration item B. It says either party may terminate this agreement with 60 days notice to the other party if the other party substantially fails to fulfill its obligations hereunder through no fault of the terminating party. What that says to me is if the other party is in breach, you have a right to terminate. It doesn't say you have a right to terminate just because, which means to me that this is truly a one-year commitment. And that may be something that we can accept, but I want to be clear about that.
Yep, understandably, this agreement, the 60-day term was reached this was done in a conversation between our own town manager and the Orleans town manager, with the understanding that if for some reason every one of the Orleans participants decided to come to our program, that we could certainly terminate the agreement with that notice. What's on my mind right now basically is I'm trying to open the program as soon as possible because we got this grant. Orleans has let us know that they won't be taking any further Chatham participants. So the people without care right now who are seeking it are unable to get into the Orleans program. So, which is great if I can get my program open as soon as possible.
Dean?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That very language was language that I had emailed Leah about. I don't know that I CC'd you, because I had the same question about the qualifying language, beginning with in the if clause, and Leah responded as she has just done now. I don't know whether this was run by town council. It's curious language to me.
Well, I mean, I don't want to make this too complicated. If the agreement is as you articulated it between Jill and Ms. Newman, then we just need to fix the language, because the language doesn't say what you said the agreement is.
Yeah,
I'm happy to request that the language be fixed before or to be corrected, or, to reflect that before you sign.
Yeah, I was trying to sort of play it back as to how this would work, who would be disadvantaged, Chatham or Orleans. And it's a curious phrasing. I would suggest that you consult with town council and get the language cleared up, if need be, before the chair, our chair signs the agreement.
And that's fine, but I don't need anybody to help me clear up this language.
Yeah,
This
okay.
language says the other party has to be in breach for you to be able to
Right.
terminate,
Right.
which I don't think is what we want.
And I'm not sure how you are in breach. I mean, if we don't send anybody to Orleans, we're not in breach because their obligation is to take the people we send. If we don't send anybody, we're not in breach. If we send people and they don't care for them, then they're in breach. So I don't know, but I'll leave it up to you. You put your finger on the same thing I did. That's all I'm saying. I don't have any, would like.
Putting that to one side, does anybody else have anything else they want to talk about here?
I think you bring up a very good point, valid point. I think the language ought to be cleared up before we sign.
Okay, I mean, well, no,
We can do a contingency motion,
We don't, whatever you like. If you want to wait, we'll wait.
I'm happy to approve this contingent on the language here being that either party can terminate without fault.
In 60 days.
With 60 days' notice, yes.
I'll offer that motion.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye?
Mr. Nacastro?
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Dykens?
Yeah, aye.
And Mr. Metters?
Aye.
So, see what you can do with that language, and hopefully we can wrap it up.
Will do. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Next item is the approval of the appointments and reappointments, the approval of election officials. I think we can do this with a omnibus motion. The clerk has given us the list of officials for the elections. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board appoint the election officials as recommended by the town clerk in her memorandum of July 12th, 2024.
Second?
All those in favor, Mr. Nacastro?
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Dykens?
Aye.
And Mr. Metters?
Aye.
Okay, moving right along, we come to appointments, committee appointments and reappointments. First item is Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board of Trustees, 1 Select Board representative and 2 at-large members. Before we start here, the proposal with respect to each of these is for one-year terms. The bylaw says the board sets the terms not to exceed 2 years. It was my recollection that when we chose 1 and 2 year terms, we did that back in October of last year. We did that in order to stagger the terms, so we didn't end up with the entire board coming to the end of its term at the same time, and therefore there are 3 who have 1-year terms, the other 4 have 2-year terms, which would expire next year. And if that's consistent, then presumably we would be nominating people for 2-year terms, and I'll, with respect to myself, if, first of all, if I am proposed and reelected, I don't care. A 1-year, 2-year, I don't care. But with respect to the other 2, I think it makes sense.
So you're saying that we should change that to 2026?
Those,
Okay.
yes, they should be changed to 2026.
Okay. Or proposed to be
Yes.
26, okay.
That's correct. What you say is correct. That was what we planned. We wanted to stagger the classes.
Okay.
It was my mistake on that. I
Oh, it's-
misunderstood, but just,
okay.
it
It's
is 26, so.
That you took the safest route and let us expand on it. No problem.
Ready to go?
I'm ready.
Okay, Mr. Shell, I move to appoint Michael Shell as the Select Board Representative, member of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board of Trustees until June 30th, 2026, unless sooner revoked or a successor is appointed.
Second.
All those in favor, Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
Next.
Mr. Chairman, I move to appoint Leslie Schneeberger as a member-at-large of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board of Trustees until June 30, 2026, unless sooner revoked or a successor is appointed.
Second.
All those in favor, Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
And Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I move to appoint Bruce Bean as a member-at-large of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board of Trustees until June 30, 2026, until sooner revoked or a successor is appointed.
Second.
All those in favor, Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
And Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Okay. With respect to I'm speaking as the liaison for the Economic Development Committee. The memo correctly says we have 2 potential reappointments, both of which expire in June of 2024. We also have 2 vacancies. 1 vacancy is for a term that expires next year, 2025, and a second vacancy expired June 30 of this year, so any appointment there would be until June of 2027. The reason I'm going through all of this is I've had a conversation with Mr. Bates, who's agreed to stay on for a 1-year term as a kind of a support and adjunct to help get the committee back up to speed. As we all observed when he met in front of us some time ago, he was not willing, as the memo says, to be reappointed in contemplation of continuing as the chair. So I would, I would propose, I will move to appoint Luther Bates as a member of the Economic Development Committee until June 30, 2025, unless sooner revoked or a successor is appointed.
I'll second.
All those in favor, Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens. And Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Okay. Any other nominations? Okay, moving on to the Cultural Council. We have 2 open seats and 1 member for reappointment. Could I hear a motion?
Mr. Shell, I move to appoint Susanna Foster as the member of the Cultural Council until June 30th, 2027, unless sooner revoked or a successor is appointed.
I'll second that. All those in favor, Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
And Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Okay. The next, We have the Golf Advisory Committee, one member up for reappointment. I'll hear a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to appoint Stephen Kuzma as a member of the Golf Advisory Committee until June 30, 2027, unless sooner revoked or a successor is appointed.
Do I hear a second?
Second, and we're so energetic tonight. Jeez. I know, let's move this along. This shouldn't be hard.
All those in favor, Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye, and Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
Human Services Committee, two members up for reappointment. Do I hear a motion?
Mr.,
I need to check.
as a point of order, I think Kathleen C.C. Motz was stepping down.
Yes, she is.
After 25 years on this committee. Do you want to say something, Jeff?
Oh, she's wonderful, and we're going to miss her dearly.
And thank you very much for your
Thank you
service,
so
CC.
very much for your service.
Okay.
I move to
I'll-
appoint,
please.
I move to appoint Barbara Conti as a member of the Human Services Committee until June 30, 2027, unless sooner revoked or a successor is appointed.
Second.
All those in favor, Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye, Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
And Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Independence Committee, we have one person up for reappointment and one whom we've already thanked, but I'll thank him again, Mr. Stuka, who is not standing for reappointment.
Mr. Shell, I move to appoint Peter Tolp as a member of the Independence Day Parade Committee until June 30th, 2027, unless sooner revoked or a
I'll
successor is
second that
appointed.
one.
All those in favor, Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye, and Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
Open Space Committee, one alternate seat and two members up for reappointment. Mr. Farrell is up for reappointment as a member of the Open Space.
Mr. Shell,
Please.
I move to appoint John Jack Farrell as a member of the Open Space Committee until June 30th, 2027, unless sooner revoked or a successor is appointed.
Second.
All those in favor, Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
And Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Parks and Recreation Commission, two members up for reappointment.
Mr. Shell, I move to appoint Kimberly Robbins as a member of the Park and Rec Commission until June 30th, 2027, unless sooner revoked or a successor is appointed.
I'm going to second that. All those in favor, Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
And Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, I move to appoint Tanya Khalil as a member of the Park and Recreational Commission until June 30th, 2027, unless sooner revoked or a successor is appointed.
Do I hear a
Second.
All those in favor, Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
And Mr. Shell says aye. 4 members of the Planning Board are up for reappointment to terms ending June 30, 2024. I'm going to start. I'll move to appoint Mr. Robert Wirtschafter as a member of the Planning Board until June 30, 2027, unless sooner revoked or a successor is appointed.
Second.
All those in favor, Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
And Mr. Metters.
Aye.
I'll listen to another motion.
I move to appoint Catherine Halpern as a member of the Planning Board until June 30, 2027, unless sooner revoked or a successor is appointed.
Second.
All those in favor, Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
And Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I move to appoint Frank Shearer as a member of the Planning Board until June 30, 2027, unless sooner revoked or a successor is appointed.
Second.
All those in favor, Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye, and Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I move to appoint Charlene Greenhalgh as a member of the Planning Board until June 30, 2027, unless sooner revoked or a successor is appointed.
Second.
All those in favor, Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye, Ms. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
And Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Public Ceremonies Committee, we have 3 open seats and 1 member up for reappointment, Mr. Robert Franz.
The one-man show.
One-man show? Does he still really? Okay. Mr. Chairman, I move to appoint Robert Franz as a member of the Public Ceremonies Committee until June 30th, 2027, unless sooner revoked or a successor is appointed. If he accepts, no.
Second.
All those in favor, Mr. Dykens?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Metters?
Aye.
Mr. Nacastro?
Aye.
And Mr. Shell says aye. The Railroad Museum Committee, one member up for reappointment and one advisor up for reappointment.
Mr. Chairman,
So, yes, please.
I move to appoint Elizabeth McCart as a member of the Railroad Museum Committee until June 30th, 2027, unless sooner revoked or a successor is appointed.
Second?
All those in favor, Mr. Nacastro?
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Ms.
Aye.
Davis, Mr.
Aye.
Dykens, and Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I move to appoint Bruce Evans as an advisor to the Railroad Museum Committee until June 30th, 2027, unless sooner revoked or a successor is appointed.
Second?
All those in favor, Mr. Nacastro?
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Dykens?
Aye.
Mr. Metters?
Aye.
And I take it we're not able, under the open meeting law, to appoint the gentleman that we interviewed this evening?
Mm-mm. No,
We should-
does it have to be posted?
I don't think we should.
Okay,
That's not protocol, but
okay,
I think it's best to have it posted since everything.
okay,
In fact,
okay.
there's another candidate. Have we already interviewed Mr. Denny? Did we already appoint him?
I believe Mr. Denny has been, but I'll
Has been.
confirm that tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I know we interviewed him. I don't remember whether we appointed him.
Okay.
No, we'll defer. Okay.
Summer Residence Advisory Committee, 4 members up for reappointment. Take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to appoint Jeff Spalter as a member of the Summer Residence Advisory Committee until June 30, 2027, unless sooner revoked or a successor is appointed.
Second.
All those in favor, Mr. Nacastro?
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Dykens?
Aye.
Mr. Metters?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I move to appoint Stuart Green as a member of the Summer Residence Advisory Committee till June 30, 2027, unless sooner revoked or a successor is appointed.
Second.
Mr. Dykens?
Aye.
Mr. Metters?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Mr. Nacastro?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I move to appoint Michael Waters as a member of the Summer Residence Advisory Committee until June 30th, 2027, unless sooner revoked or a successor is appointed.
Second.
All those in favor, Mr. Nacastro?
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Dykens?
Aye.
And Mr. Metters?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I move to appoint Thomas Garvey as a member of the Summer Residence Advisory Committee till June 30th, 2027, unless sooner revoked or a successor is appointed.
Second.
All those in favor, Mr. Metters?
Aye.
Mr. Dykens?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Mr. Nacastro?
Aye.
Zoning Board of Appeals, 1 associate member up for reappointment.
Mr. Chairman, I move to appoint Steve DeBur as an associate member of the Zoning Board of Appeals until June 30th, 2025, unless sooner revoked or a successor is appointed.
Second.
All those in favor, Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye. Mr. Nacastro?
Aye.
And Mr. Metters?
Aye.
Mr. Dykens?
Aye.
That concludes our committee appointments, and now we have the town manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Another comprehensive report put together by town staff. Just a few items to note. As you'll see, that we have a lot of work anniversaries in July. You know, a lot of years of service here with Kenneth Rend, DPW heavy equipment operator with 33 years. Our police chief, Mike Anderson, with 28 years, and Police Lieutenant Andy Goddard with 27 years. Moving down the list, we've got Judy Giorgio, our health agent, with 20 years, our Deputy Fire Chief Ryan Clark with 17 years. Also of note, Leah Lacrosse, that was here tonight, Director of Community Services, has been here with us for 2 years. And Brianna Fitzpatrick, our Assistant Media Coordinator, is celebrating her 1-year anniversary this month. Also, just noting some employee anniversaries for August. We have Candace Cook, our Assistant Assessor, has been here for 8 years. Michelle Clark, who is, I believe, retiring soon with 18 years. And our Town Manager, Jill Goldsmith, will be here for 13 years this August. We also have our Housing and Sustainability Director, Gloria McPherson, with 2 years, and Andrea Warner, our Accounting Assistant, with 1 year. Just a few to note, comprehensive list in the report. We also have, in addition to our new town planner that was introduced tonight, we have our new Assistant Town Accountant and Assistant Finance Director, Nick Cantella. And we also have our Emergency Management Deputy Director that was appointed, and that's a familiar name. It's former fireman Mark Heller. And he's back joining us in the Deputy Director for Emergency Management role. So just a few items of note.
Thank you very much. I think, yes, sir.
Can I just offer a suggestion? I appreciate the report, we all do. And this evening, we had an introduction to the new town planner. Prior to COVID, we regularly had before us every new employee that came to work for the town, no matter what the position was. And we haven't really gotten back to that. I don't know whether the plan is to have just department heads or senior managers, but I'd like to see us, I personally would like to see the new employees come before us one by one again. And I think that would be, if you could pass that suggestion on to the town manager, I would appreciate it.
I certainly will. Thank you.
Anything else?
Mr. Chairman, move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, Mr. Metters.
Aye.
Mr. Dyken.
Aye.
Ms. Davis. Mr. Shell says aye, and Mr. Nacastro.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 7:13. Thank you all. Good night, Chatham.